Hi. So welcome. Today in the CSA Bootcamp, we're going to be talking about marketing methods for specifically for CSA shares. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Our agenda today is to do some quick introductions. We'll talk quite a bit about storytelling and connection. We will spend a bulk of the time on different approaches to marketing, different strategies for marketing. We'll talk a little bit about retention, and then we'll talk about some tools and resources. There is closed captioning available, and as always, we're recording this and going to post it on our YouTube channel. Farm Generations Cooperative is a multi-stakeholder agricultural cooperative. And our first and our currently only product is GrownBy. So really we are GrownBy is a sales and management platform for farmers that is farmer owned by this cooperative. And so any farmer who sells on GrownBy is invited to join the co-op. The co-op has been funded by USDA grants, including the grant that funded this program, which was a farmers market promotion program grant. And there are a number of things that came out of this great grant, including some recorded webinars about CSA programs in New York City, a handbook for CSA farmers, a survey report about CSA in New York City, which is a really innovative and interesting model, and some really cool features that are CSA specific, and even more specifically, CSA in New York City specific models that are maybe helpful actually for growers across the country that we built into GrownBy. So you can check all of those out on our website, and I'll put the link for that in the chat. One of the biggest parts of selling CSA shares is about the storytelling of your farm and the storytelling of the connection that those members can have to your farm. So we used to joke, my husband and I used to joke that your members are not just buying the produce, and in fact, they might not really even primarily be buying produce as part of this relationship with you. They're joining for the connection. You're selling the story of your farm, yourself, what is important to you about this farm. So I think it's really important through the whole course of your year, not just when you're trying to sell shares, right? But always in every newsletter, in all of your marketing, in all of your social media, to really be thinking about the story that you're talking about your farm, that what is important to you. And that could be, I can name a handful of stuff, right? That could be land stewardship, land preservation. That could be about new farmers and apprenticeship, like the effort that you put into growing new farmers through your business. That could be about fostering food justice. It could be about cooperatives. It could be about family, right? Like I think the story, there's a whole American story. I have plenty of things to say about it, right? About family farms. And there are lots of folks who are excited to be getting food from a specific family. Longevity, history, all of these things kind of play into the story of that farm. And I think, I'm not saying you have to pick like one or two of these. I think you can tell a lot of the story of that. Part of it could be about your personal background as a farmer. So there's so much about that I think is important. And your members are joining your CSA partially because they also believe in that story. That's kind of the core value of the farm, really getting making an emotional connection between you and your customers. This can happen really well through good pictures, right? You can tell a great story with pictures. The pictures that you include should include you, like actually you, the farm owner. In so many cases, it is very interesting to me as a person who spends a lot of time looking at farm websites, how often I go on a farm website and there's great pictures of the food and there might be pictures of the scenery and there is no picture of the farmers. And We might all be a little bit sheepish, but or shy to show our faces, but I think that is really important that folks know who you are. But also your employees, who they may also be spending many seasons hearing from and knowing about your kids, the members themselves, animals, both domestic and wild, right? Like a farm is a place-based experience in a lot of ways, and I think even including the wild animals that are part of that scenery can be important and can kind of bring out the way that a farm is not just a way to get some produce, but is like an ecosystem that is important in the world. And then just like other place-based things, right? Like pretty pictures of your farmer are helpful. But I really think probably that the ones with faces in them are most important. Um, and then another good important photo to consider is just really clear pictures of the shares. So that is a thing to think about through the course of your season, like taking great share pictures to help new potential members know what kinds of produce is in a share and what kind of size are we talking about when we look at shares. Um, so those are some ideas about storytelling. And then mediums for storytelling, right? There are a lot of ways that you're going to do this. A newsletter is a really common method that newsletters can be sent to your entire contact list, not just your members, right? I receive a number of obviously I'm pretty excited about this stuff, right? But I receive a number of farm newsletters from people I have worked for, from people I have worked alongside of, from people I just like know and love. Also from people whose content is just like so much fun. I want to read it every week. And so your newsletter does not just need to be your members or the people who have shared that week, even if it's including, for instance, share content, because all of those people receiving this newsletter could potentially be members in the future. Social media is obviously a super important medium for storytelling as well. This can also be a lighter lift than writing a whole newsletter, of course. It can give a snapshot of the day-to-day life on a farm. And, produce, you want to highlight all of that stuff. But I think there's also, I certainly follow some farm social media accounts where people talk about both the good and the challenging parts of farming. And I think that is part of the storytelling of your farm, is not just, that you can grow a beautiful head of cauliflower, or you made this, that the plums came in great this year, right? But it's also like, what does it feel like to be on the fourth day of a heat wave, and what does it feel like to have to put an animal down that you have loved and has made food for you? And like some of those more challenging things that I think help customers who have purchased CSA shares or who are committed to CSA shares really feel a little bit invested and more knowledgeable about the real life of farming. And also because these members have partially joined a kind of unusual way of getting produce, right? So they might be very interested in the like environmental, ethical, social, cultural details of farming. And so sharing that stuff, both the good and the bad, I think can be really helpful. Another medium for storytelling is just live events with the farmer. So that can be anything from, trying as a farmer to make sure you make it to all of your CSA distribution, like one of each CSA distributions over the course of the season, or if you're kind of small, being at a number of your distributions. That could be, other live events like, harvest parties or work parties or, potlucks, whatever it might be that you are interested in. We do have one other workshop about events coming up. We'll post that at the end. And that's just a chance for both, for this like kind of one-sided relationship to be a little bit two-sided, right? For you to hear from a customer why they are members and to talk or answer questions that they might have about anything from like the use of black plastic or landscape fabric in your operation to, um, your like, personal background. Hold on a second. Um, Similarly, if you have on-farm pickups, creating opportunities for just a little bit of lingering. Hi, Nicole. Um, can be really helpful. I sort of crowdsourced this a little bit just from our staff to be like, what are some great strategies that you know of? And my friend and boss, Lindsay Lusher-Shute, who is a co-owner at Hardy Roots Farm in the Hudson Valley, said, oh, well, we have a pick your own garden as part of our on-farm pickup, and we have a tree house, and now we have baby goats. And so people hang out because their kids want to be there playing in the treehouse and touching baby goats. And so I think making as much of a chance for folks to linger on farm as you can is part of that storytelling as well. And then member testimonials, reviews, quotes, those kind of paint a picture of why it's great to be part of this farm. And it might even bring up some reasons that people are members that you don't even necessarily consider because they didn't seem perhaps as important to you. So I think it's great to ask folks to provide quotes and reviews. So here's a little bit of online considerations that are not related to social media. So even if you are a pretty low tech farmer, you likely are you're going to have some online presence, and that's going to be really important for letting potential customers find you. And one of the most important ways to do this is to really try to optimize your SEO, your search engine optimization, right? So there's a great video from Taste the Local Difference, which is an organization in Michigan that is all about SEO optimization. I think if I say optimization, that's actually just like saying the same word over again. But anyway, it's all about SEO, and it has a lot of really great tips and pointers that I think are kind of key. One of the biggest and I think most important to kind of consider is everywhere that you put your name, address, and phone number online, it has to be formatted exactly the same, right? So like if you have an ampersand in the name of your farm, don't sometimes use the ampersand and sometimes use and, like be very consistent to make sure that you're coming up in searches as well as you possibly can. There's also, you should consider Google business listings, make sure you're shown there. Your website is a very important place to clearly communicate the rules and the details about your shares, but also just to bring folks and make sure that even if you're doing your online sales on a platform like GrownBy, that your website is the place where people can really find you. One of the other ways to both improve SEO, but also just get your name out there in the places that customers are looking for CSA shares, if they already know, like, hey, I want a CSA share near me, are CSA directories. And so this is a list of them. A lot of these are really regional, right? Like Local Harvest is national, but Taste the Local Difference is sort of upper Midwest, the Pacific Northwest CSA Coalition, the Michigan CSA Network, Hudson Valley CSA Coalition is one of our favorites because that's where we're based. Future Harvest, Fair Share, Calf, Oak. But also, if you're not in any of these, if you recognize one of those and you're like, oh, that's my region, that's awesome. You also probably know your local organic association, which may be that may have a similar online CSA directory. Your Department of Ag may also have one, or your cooperative extension. So if you're in a state that's, you're not seeing a familiar name here, search around to try to make sure that you're on any other local CSA directories, even if they're not great, right? Like you might look at that directory and be like, this is weird, but I think it's helpful to try to be on them as much as you can. Some of those cost money to have your name posted. Some of them have different tiers, like in terms of payment. So just consider that and how that might work or not for your business. And then marketing via social media. So this is, like I sort of joked beforehand, this social media piece is not my area of expertise, but we do have Maggie, who's here on this call, worked with me on this part. So in addition to storytelling, you're also trying to use your social media during sign up seasons to really create buzz and get people sign up. I think that the whole idea of a sign up season is particularly great, and it can kind of create a little bit of buzz and be like, oh, this is the time of year that this happens. And I also think like being kind of consistent about that year to year to year is a helpful way of helping your members get into that rhythm of like, oh, I usually buy my CSA share in early November or something like that, so that they are they kind of have that in their heads as well. So I think designating a specific time to open your CSA signups, creating any kind of countdown or teaser posts about it to build anticipation around that. Continue posting until you're full, because obviously you want to sell all the shares that you can. But try to get as many folks signed up. Like there are farms who are like, oh, it's great. We build enough buzz that we open up and then we can sell a lot of shares in that first little chunk of time. And not only does that get money into your bank account when you need it most, but it also is just like less to worry about, to know that like this is all set up and ready to go. I have members already signed up for the next season. Also to consider marketing around social media. So those are all ways to kind of build that buzz on social media. You can also use private groups to build community and to kind of build trust within them. So this happens most often, I think, on Facebook, but providing a space where members can communicate directly with you and with each other, right? Because the C in community supported agriculture can go in lots of different directions. And I think these private groups could be a really nice place on the internet. Paid ads are a possibility. Those can increase your reach. It's not necessary to pay for ads. And if you're considering it, it may be worth looking into utilizing like really targeted location-based ads, so that you're just spending your time and money to get folks who are near you. And there are a couple of free tools listed there on the side that are, we also have some other tools at the end. Canva, which is how I make all of my slideshows, and, invitation to things and other important posts, is a great design tool. You can use it for videos, for print, for like online and social media tools. And there are free versions. Upsplash has stock photos that are free. There's other stock photography sites, and Planopy, I guess you say. Maggie, do you want to speak up and say that? Not
Planoly.
Planoly. And you use that for grid layout for Instagram?
Correct. Yeah, it's just like a pretty bare bones way to upload your creative content, so you can see how your feed will look, and also you can schedule it from there and like plan out your calendar for those like sign up seasons and other promotions.
Awesome. And I think that those kinds of tools, those like planning tools for social media, can be incredibly helpful for helping you stay organized when you're maybe needing to also be posting social media posts in the heat of your season, or cold of your season, but in the busy part of your season. Does anybody else have other social media tools that they use and love that they want to throw in the chat or come out and say out loud? Okay. Maybe not. I also have a very old school method slide in here. I think it's really easy in this moment in the world to think that you can just do some stuff online and that's great, and people will come to you. But I think that some of these like more traditional or older methods can be actually really effective in getting folks who are local to you. So a couple that we still see folks using, and I would encourage you as you kind of go about your life to notice if you see CSA advertisements in places like this, or if you just are caught by other paper materials in places. So I sometimes see paper materials like for flyering at farmers markets where you sell, right? Like if you're selling at a farmers market, it's a great place to be handing out some material about somebody signing up for your CSA. Stores, libraries, post office, coffee shops, gyms, any of your distribution locations are places where it would be very effective to have a sign, right? Like if you are having a distribution in a church, everyone who attends that church should have some way of knowing that you are going to hold a distribution location, CSA distribution there, right? Because that's obviously a place that they're frequenting and comfortable in. So that is just that may be those folks may be best reached by paper materials. Word of mouth is probably the way that most people find out about CSA distributions in their area. I would guess, and that is the way I have often found. Like I have had members say, "Oh, I joined because this friend of mine joined," right? And so public distribution locations kind of can create that level of visibility and word of mouth, right? So if you walk into a YMCA and there's a tables and tables worth of produce, you might find yourself asking, "What's happening here?" Also, just members talking to other members is a key way or members talking to other potential members is a really key way to get new folks to sign up. Meet the farmer events at distribution locations, health fairs, road races, like all kinds of stuff. Any place that you feel like, oh, there might be folks here who would be interested in local food and local to the area where I'm having a distribution, those are great places to maybe make yourself known, or to even, we have a slide about this later, but ask members to be there, right? If you have members who are going to run in a race, like could you wear a farm t-shirt? Like how can we like increase word of mouth in that way? CSA fairs are hosted in some regions. We have a great one here in the Hudson Valley, and that is just where a lot of farms come together and kind of all table together to try to reach potential CSA members. Again, if you have something like that in your area, that's a great idea. These next two are a little funny, right? Radio ads. And you're going to say, like, who would ever have a radio ad? But when I asked this question, Lindsay, my boss, said, oh, we have a radio station that is she didn't say all of this, but I know this because I have listened a lot to this radio station, a for-profit radio station. So it has ads that is local to their area that plays really great music. And she's like, we have had great success with radio ads there at this one station. So that's I think a really funny, but if you are in a place where if you have a radio station that you're like, oh, that would maybe be a good fit, then it's fun to point that out. Print publications also, like, that is still a thing. You may find that there are print publications that you think would be a good place to put your effort. I would say specifically edible magazines, which you see all around the country, are clearly focused on local food and on folks who enjoy and are excited about food, and that could be a place to put some effort towards advertising if you feel like that's right for you. And then trial shares. So I wasn't really sure where to put this. I think this is a pretty old school method, just having a weekly option, right? So if you River Queen Greens in New Orleans does a great job of this. They just have a box, and you could, as a prospective member, say, I want to try this whole CSA thing out. I'm going to purchase 1 week's worth of a box and see what I think about it. I will also say that at GrownBy, we encourage farms to offer vacation weeks and lots of flexibility around what happens when they don't pick up their share. But one of the methods that I think does sometimes result in new members knowing more about the CSA is when a member goes away on vacation and they can't pick up, and they send their neighbor, their friend, somebody else that they know would be excited to use this produce for the week. And then that friend says, wow, that was really fun and easy, and that eggplant tasted better than any eggplant I've ever had. And so I'm going to join again for next year. Or I'm going to join for the first time for next year. So I think that that's a way of kind of finding some new folks who could be potential members. Again, I think CSA is a relationship. It's community supported agriculture. It can be a partnership. And I think it's important to think, it can be very useful to think beyond just you and your tiny farm staff and say, like, who else is part of my team? And who else can help me in this marketing effort? Your members are your members are on your team. They're not just the people you're selling to. They are also like invested in your farm, sometimes many years worth of investment in your farm. So ask them, where would you want to see this outreach, right? Say, we're still looking to fill 40 slots in our CSA, and where do you think I should post information about our CSA? Where could you post, like, you, the member, like, where else could you post this that I can't get into? Maybe like a PTA social media group, or a brick and mortar location in a distribution in a town where we distribute, but we're not going to drive over there just for this, or just to post this flyer or something like that. Where could you, the members, help us find new potential shareholders? You can ask your current members to invite a friend. And I would suggest doing that without incentivizing it for the first round. We'll talk a little bit later in a little bit about, like incentives for referring a friend. But it might be that if you just say, do you know anyone who would like to be a member of our CSA? We still have these slots and we'd love to fill them before this date. They'll find somebody that they know that they think would be a good fit. You can also provide a graphic and ask them to share it. They may or may not, but you can ask that. And you can also ask them to write reviews, right? Because we talked a little bit about how reviews kind of help tell the story of what it's like to be a member and of the importance of being a CSA member. So those are some ways you can involve your members in that task. And I think also that sometimes that involvement makes people feel more a part of this endeavor. So don't necessarily feel bad asking for that help. And then business partners. So you might have business partners that really should be helping you. So if you have a workplace CSA, like, it is partly their role to help bring their employees on board. But you might also, and you might have host sites, like I mentioned a YMCA, but you might have a church, a school, all of the places that we talked, a community partner that we talked about in the distribution location. So any of those host sites would be businesses that you might encourage or request that they share information about your CSA. Again, you can provide them with a graphic so that they, they share it well, and that it's easy for them. And sort of as far and wide as you can, ask folks to help spread the word about the CSA. Any of the folks that maybe receive donations from you, so if you provide leftover produce to a soup kitchen or a food pantry or a church or someone like that, like, could they share information about the CSA? Any local mission aligned businesses are great fits. And then you can also collaborate with influencers or bloggers to help share this partnership. So if you have folks who are in your membership or that you follow and really love, asking for collaborations can be a really great way to get your information known more widely than your particular reach allows. Last week or the week before last, recently, the week before last, we talked about lower income shares and making shares that are more financially accessible. If that's a goal of your CSA and your farm, you may need to be a little bit more direct or creative about some of your marketing techniques. So you might have to have some approaches that you haven't used before. Again, like we talked about partnerships just a minute ago, community partnerships can be really, really effective and helpful with finding lower income shareholders or SNAP only shareholders. So you want to find folks that are trusted nonprofits or faith based organizations. Schools can also be helpful in that, in kind of as a community partner. One thing that we talked about in that financial accessibility workshop is ambassadors. So Glenwood has had some success with having a compensated member who is trusted and knowledgeable and can share information about the CSA with their friends and family and people in their community. Sorry, I was just checking the chats to make sure that there wasn't anything that was specific to that. And then language justice consideration. So one of the things that can be really helpful about that ambassadorship, or using this idea of ambassadors, is that you could find an ambassador who spoke the language of the community where you're trying to sell shares, if that's not a language that you also speak. So I think thinking about language is really important in your outreach materials. If you are trying to sell shares, certainly SNAP shares or lower income shares, but really any shares in a community where there are multiple languages spoken. So that can be a little bit complicated, and I think we talked about this in the other workshop as well, in that sometimes you might have outreach materials in another language. So say maybe you put out outreach materials in simplified Chinese, but then your website or your site, the site where you do your e-commerce platform is not available in another language. So just kind of keeping that in mind, or perhaps like your newsletter, which you might be able to quite easily translate using one of the translation tools that are out there, which have gotten incredibly stronger with AI. That you might translate your newsletter, but like, are you putting out recipes that are culturally relevant? So, but I still encourage you to even start with the idea of being like, oh, we want to have outreach materials in multiple languages. We want to make efforts to try to reach the broad community. And certainly if you are really working to try to sell shares that are at a lower income price in addition to higher or middle income prices, that could be really important. And then you may have different rules and commitments for shares that are SNAP shares or low income shares. Certainly SNAP shares require that members be able to cancel in a way that is not necessarily always true with a traditional CSA. And so if you have different rules, you're just going to want to be sure that you have communicated that clearly, so that everyone feels like they've signed up for a share and they understand what the commitments are. Does anybody have questions about that? Or anything they want to add? Because I know we have some folks on this call that certainly know about this better than I do, as well, or better than I do. And then to transition to like incentivizing, I struggled with what to call this slide, and I think I saw Anna say that if you had trouble coming up with a catchy caption for your post or email, ChatGPT can help. And maybe I should have used ChatGPT or Google Gemini for the header of the slide. But I think that there are lots of ways that we can also incentivize shares and incentivize share selling. Thanks, I was trying to be funny. Like I earlier said, like, don't try to get folks to share information about your share before like saying something like, oh, if you refer a friend, you get 10% off or something like that. Because I think sometimes you end up giving away money that you could have kept for the farm. But discounts can be great incentives for early signups for sure. So we often see farms say like, oh, if you sign up by the end of the year, you get X percentage or X dollars off. That can be really effective. It can also be like kind of a thoughtful way of dealing with taxes. So we certainly see lots of people use discounts for signing up early. We also see people say like, oh, refer a friend and you get some money off, or you might even have some sort of financial incentive for reposting information about the farm. Promo codes are a way that sometimes those incentives happen. So promo codes in GrownBy are really easy. It's really easy to feature products that you are excited to sell and sort of change where they show in your shop. It's easy to provide and to track discounts either by percentages or by flat fee. Certainly online platforms are going to really help you do that in ways that if you are selling in a more traditional, like non-supported way, can be a little bit tricky. You can also do special giveaways where the share isn't discounted. So which is kind of nice, right? Because you don't necessarily lose money on the share itself. So you could give away merch or the option to win something. Everybody who joins by December 31st is entered to win a free cooking class with this blogger, or that's something that Christina from Troy Division does. This like cool co-branding with a cooking blog. Online blog. I sound like my grandma with like a food blogger. But that could just also just be a t-shirt or a hat, or you're just excited. People are excited to get the opportunity to win something. It could also be a share, right? Like join for everybody who joins before this certain date is entered to win a free flower share, for instance. And that would, I think, probably really help folks get excited to sign up, to step right up. There was one other thing I was thinking about a minute ago that I'm not sure made it onto one of the slides, that was about, about rejoining. So I don't think it's on this retention slide. So we're going to talk about that now. So retention is a super hot topic around CSA, right? Because it's not uncommon for CSAs to have sort of low retention rates, right? Maybe 50% of folks. And that's going to really vary how long you've had your membership, but also where the membership is located, right? If your membership is in an urban area where people are maybe moving neighborhoods frequently or traveling frequently or coming and going, you might have a lower percentage of retention, but you really want to, the more you can retain the members you have from year to year, like that's just less work for you. It's a sign that you have really built a strong community. It is just once you've got them, keep them. Like let's try to keep the members that you've got. So that goes back to your storytelling, right? It goes back to really creating connection between you and your customers. It may be partially about surveying and trying to understand why the customers that you have joined, and that helps you understand in your area with your kind of farm and your kind of share, like who is your target audience. And one of the things that I will say as like a little side note is many years ago, maybe 5 years ago, pre-pandemic, the Hudson Valley CSA Coalition did a big survey of CSA and potential CSA members in the Hudson Valley. And it was very interesting to see that one of the most common reasons that those members had joined or continued to join their CSA wasn't for environmental reasons or whatever. It was mostly just about they were home cooks, They were really excited to be home cooks. And I think that was a very interesting takeaway. Every time we talk about those results, there's always someone in the crowd that's like a little bit incredulous, like, are you sure that that's what they said, that they were really only in it for the quality of the produce, which is kind of different than the slides that I've been saying, like build your connection, da da da, like talk about your story. They were really excited for like recipes, right? And the excitement of recipes. So if you find that that is true in your membership, then you kind of know where to put your effort, right? You can kind of take a survey and you know how you need to keep your members happy. But to think a little bit about retention, not just knowing who your members are and why they're excited to be members of your farm, but also just making it very smooth and easy to join the CSA, making it really painless to sign up, making sure that they don't have a lot of problems or glitches with payment. And so certainly I would say like GrownBy is a really good option for that. Making it easy for them to rejoin when their share comes up again. If you have early bird discounts for renewing, or you may that's a way of retaining members. You may also have a special member only sign up period at the beginning where you say like, oh, be sure to get in early on your renewal because then we open it to the general public. Some farms use automatic renewal, so customers just are signed up for again and again and again and again. It's kind of like your subscription to, I don't know, whatever it is you're subscribed to, the Washington Post or I don't know, the New York Times cooking blog, whatever it is that you're signed up for, Netflix. So that's how, obviously, you know how automatic renewals work. There is a really great resource that just came out that they do, I think they do most years, from the CSA Innovations Network, that is a renewal package with templates to help you get your members excited to rejoin for next year. It's some really easy content to use. So I will link that here and also share it out in the email. And then you may have retention sort of like in the social media section where we talked about private CSA groups. Private groups for CSA members. You could have member only content, right? You could have a member only cooking class with your farmer. You could have a member only farm dinner. You have member only events, member only recipes, that kind of thing. That is sort of another incentive to join the CSA. And that makes people feel like they got in, to something exclusive. So there was a slide a little like quite some time ago with a couple other resources, but certainly Canva is a tool that is really, really useful. I saw Anna mentioned ChatGPT and Google Gemini as AI really helpful for creating good email subject lines. Canva and Upsplash, Rye voted for. And CapCut. Do you want to say anything about CapCut?
I've only used it a couple times, but I used it when I worked at a store that was trying to market to younger audiences. So we would find whatever like trend was going on TikTok, like if it was all the little cats talking to each other or whatever, and then you can overlay that on a video of your farm or your store or whatever. It tended to get more engagement than just when we filmed a blank thing around the store and added a caption or something.
Yeah.
It was kind of fun to play with.
Yeah, and we have talked a lot about at the CSA Innovations Network about like humor, right? And just being cheeky when you can. Like I think it's really common for farm content to be a little bit earnest, but it certainly doesn't need to be. And so just like kind of thinking about that and understanding like what tone do you want to strike, and also like it's only you, like it's your business, you get to do whatever you want. So if you want to be cheeky, you can, and if you want to be earnest, you can, and if you want to do one thing one day and something else the next, it's just you. Certainly from a storytelling perspective, there are email managers. Folks might use one of these or others. Translation, I have loved DeepL, which is just an AI translating tool that has been really useful. These are not perfect for translating, obviously, Google Translate or DeepL, but I think they've gotten stronger with AI. And so that's helpful. And then survey tools, which can be kind of key to knowing what you need to know about your members, or you might do a survey, a preseason survey to help know a little bit about where folks have come in from. So again, if you survey your members and you say, how did you hear about us? And everyone says, I heard about you on your Instagram reels, then that is maybe where you should put more effort. And if everyone says, I heard about you from a best friend, then you have to figure out how to make word of mouth work well for you. Or maybe it tells a different story, right? Like maybe it tells you that you should be doing a better job on your Instagram reels. But so I think those are some of the tools and resources that are out there. I will also say that I didn't put this in here. Earlier I mentioned that Taste the Local Difference had a great video on SEO for farmers. They're based in Michigan, but social media, and they have lots of great information on their YouTube. They have a number of good videos on their YouTube about just social media and information about how to really optimize sales online and email campaigns and stuff like that for farmers. That's very farmer specific and farm and food business specific. So I would say that's a really cool resource if you are like, oh, I really need to learn more on this topic. You may find that is helpful. But if anybody has questions about marketing generally, or if anybody also wants to share something that they have done from a marketing perspective that's been working really well for them, or seen other farms do that they're excited about.
If anyone needs like inspiration for a farm that's doing branding and online marketing extremely well, they're not a CSA farm, and they are they're in my realm with the herbs and teas and stuff. But Green Heffa Farms in North Carolina, Clarenda Stanley, Farmer C, is she used to be a marketing nonprofit marketing person, so her branding is like on point. But her she has like the email newsletter that drives people to the website. She also does lives on, I think, YouTube, where it'll be like, today we're talking about 5 herbs that'll help you as you age, or 5 herbs that'll help for specifically for women or specifically for kids or whatever, and sort of tailor. I think there's a way you could sort of tailor that model to produce or meat or dairy or whatever you're doing. But she definitely, I think, masters the show the day in the life of the farm on Instagram, and she sort of has different strategies where people can sort of pick out, oh, that's her stuff, because they recognize the colors or the style of talking or whatever.
Yeah, I joked a little bit about how it's your business and so you get to decide what to do, but I think it's definitely a much more effective strategy to really have a brand and to have a look that is your look that you are going for in all of the materials that you put out, to have a font that is your font, and to really consider and build that. And it may change over time, but I think that it makes you really identifiable. Well, thank you. Thank you all for being here. It's really, I think there are a couple of new folks and some familiar faces. So thanks for joining us. We have a couple more, right? We have next week is communication strategies, and then we skip a week because we have to be at a workshop or a conference in New Mexico. But then we talk before Thanksgiving about event management and planning, and then after Thanksgiving about evaluation techniques and surveys. So if you miss any of these, or you want to go back because there's something that you wanted to hear again, you can watch them on YouTube. And yeah, you can reach out to me at any time at farmgenerations.coop. And I will put our links here in the chat. And yeah, I appreciate all of you joining today.